So in this segment, we're going to be talking about Rishi Sunak can't afford to keep ignoring Brexit's calamitous impact on the economy. Really, this article is more, I think it's a bit of a clickbait article in the sense of they do talk about Brexit at the end, but I think this is more towards businesses struggling with the cost of energy. So the question was simple if brutal as Grant Shapps defended the government's decision to reduce energy bill support for small businesses this spring. He was asked on Radio 4 today, are you saying businesses should just suck it up? And the business secretary, usually one of the best media performers, Grant Shapps, one of the best media performers, really? Insisted, quote, that's not what we are saying, end quote, but as he proceeded to set out the subsidy package was being cut from 18 billion to 5.5 billion, he confirmed that businesses would indeed be expected to cope. And good luck to any businesses out there, because there's no way they can survive, or some of them won't be able to survive paying through the nose for energy. How can you expect businesses to survive the incoming recession when out of the G7 members we are going to do the worst? In fact, we are predicted to do the second worst out of the OECD top 20. Only being beaten by Russia. Like, Russia. Come on, Russia. Like, the country that's been sanctioned like no one's business. Honestly, it's madness the UK is doing this bad, but this is what happens when you impose sanctions on yourself. On Monday night, Treasury Minister James Cartledge was even more frank, saying the cost of the current subsidy was unsustainable, he said, and it's not fair for the government to habitually pay the bills of businesses. And so, the government can do things like windfall taxes and use that money to help people and businesses. Companies that, like Centrica, are looking at making an 8 times their normal profits. A windfall tax would help at least get some funds in to help with the crisis rather than just borrowing all the money at exorbitant rates because of Liz Truss. That was a sharp contrast to a warning from Martin McTagg of the Federation of Small Businesses that thousands of his members will be left facing bankruptcy without enough time to adjust to the huge global shock of the energy prices. Ministers were essentially, quote, leaving them at the mercy of Putin, end quote. And it's not just Putin that's the problem here. The Tories have done very little to deal with the price gouging we are seeing. Also, more small and medium enterprises that go bankrupt or have staffing cuts. That's more welfare that the government will have to pay and less money for the exchequer via taxes. You'd also see the economy shrink further due to less spending, making the upcoming recession worse. And let's not forget, the UK government cut the amount of gas storage we have, making the energy crisis far worse, because we have to start importing more energy from countries, typically other European countries, who can charge us more because of the day-to-day rate of gas is much higher in the winter. Whenever challenged on why the government wasn't doing more for various problem groups, Sunak often declared, quote, we can't do everything and he can't solve every problem, end quote. Quotes, you can do better, champ, a lot better, in my opinion. The Bank of England, this is where it gets really dark, because the Bank of England's chief economist, Hugh Pill, warned that the UK was far from out of the woods on rising prices. No duh. In a markedly hawkish speech, he said the UK had a distinctive inflation problem that, combined with lingering uncertainty over gas prices, a tighter labour market, including lots of over 50s quitting work in the pandemic, and companies too keen to put up prices of their products, even though UK inflation would fall, it could stay much higher than comparable countries, he said. Peel sounds more like a suck-it-up hardliner than even ministers. The longer firms try to hang on to profit margins by putting up prices, and the longer workers try to bargain for higher wages, the more likely it is that domestically generated inflation will achieve its own self-sustaining momentum. Businesses can't just absorb the extra costs, they will put up prices, which means that consumers will either struggle to buy essential goods to live, which is the sign of a failing state in my opinion. The other thing is that less people will buy luxuries, which again will result in staff cuts and a recession that lasts longer. Capitalism requires consumption and debt to work. We are going to see a huge reduction to both. We haven't talked about the Brexit angle, we'll do it in a moment. But, he has talked about some of the specific issues that we are facing, some of these caused predominantly by Brexit. The longer firms try to hang on to profit margins, I would mention this bit, the more likely it is domestically inflation, even as oil prices fell. I don't think wages will be the major issue here. It will push up the costs of businesses. The main issue I think businesses face, depending on what they are doing, are the energy costs, the strikes, the lack of staff, the rising costs of goods in general, due to import costs and logistics, obviously the rising cost of services as well, and people cutting back on what they buy. Pill said, although overall immigration was up, the loss of freedom of movement of EU workers has led to a labour market mismatch that were more costly for employers. Additionally, Brexit weighed on UK trade with continental Europe, also serving to disturb supply chains and weaken competitive pressure on UK producers, he said. Quitting the EU has reduced competition from EU firms, making our labour markets far less flexible, and both had led to higher prices. So we spoke about that one. It was the doctor from LSE, the economics major, I think she is, and it was her and the American professor who were talking about the extra costs of Brexit on the UK economy. They laid this out months ago. They also mentioned things like food inflation, reduced foreign direct investment, among other things. These are all making the supply chain, making the crisis worse for businesses. Combine Brexit with the energy crisis. How are businesses meant to survive? This one you've got, you've got bigger chance making it out of Raccoon City during the zombie crisis. Yet in his New Year's speech, the Prime Minister talked about seizing the opportunities of Brexit without being candid about the downsides. He said that if we are honest, change requires sacrifice. If Sunak tries to Photoshop Brexit out of the picture of the UK's sluggish growth and stubbornly high inflation over the coming years, it may prove not just embarrassing but politically damaging. Do the jokes telling people about sacrifices, about Brexit opportunities, like, where are these opportunities? I'll wait. He can't be honest because not only did he back Brexit, he's been a minister for years at the highest level. Now he's the Prime Minister. This country's doomed with this lot. And the fact is, you've got less supplies for the UK businesses, which means that costs go up because, suppliers can charge you more. You've got rising energy costs. You've got a massive staff shortage. You have a lot of costs for businesses. And the fact is, you have a skill shortage as well. There are so many problems now for businesses, and SMEs, small medium enterprises, are the main employers in the UK. And so what that means is that it's going to be a rough old time for a lot of them trying to make it out of this recession. And if you were a business, if you were someone looking to make an investment in the UK, set up a factory in the UK, why would you do it? You have a lot of other options, and you might be better placing your money elsewhere. But anyways, I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Support the channel on Patreon if you can. And hopefully I'll see you in the next one.